Fevered Publishing presents Metal Rise, Shadowfast Action Thriller 3 by Cole Chase. Read by the author.
Chapter 9, 1:07 a.m. Eventually, gently, the Hispanic mechanics make it clear to Cisco, with hugs and lots of cool street handshakes and smiles covering their yawns, they really want to get some sleep. The band piles awkwardly into the van, most of them rattling around loose in the back, and Cisco eases Mr. Licks out of the shop. The overhead door rolls shut behind them. The van idles in the parking lot. Cisco looks at Quinn, belted into the passenger seat. Now what? After midnight in Seattle, Quinn muses, trying to guess their options. Only one place to go, Rory interjects from the back. Half the band says it in unison with her. Dick's. Quinn settles back in his seat, making like a bigwig with his chauffeur. He waves one hand indolently. To Dick's, my good Jeeves. Cisco throws the van into gear. As they roll out, he asks, "What's a Jeeves?" (1:16 a.m.) As the youngest and newest in the crew, Rory and Cisco get the task of waiting in line to order cheeseburgers, French fries, and shakes for Shadowfast while the other band members wait in the van. Quinn directed Cisco to park behind the burger joint so passers-by on 45th Street don't readily spot them. Rory hunches her shoulders against the cold. She's still wearing her black and spiky stage outfit. Her outfit keeps drawing glances from some frat boy types in the next line, guys who wear a t-shirt from one sport, a cap from another sport, and socks from a third sport. An eclectic mix of older folks, artsy types, and stoners waits patiently in 4 lines outside Dick's simple one-story building. Bright white light blasts from the glass walk-up windows. The air smells of grilled meat. A towering orange and yellow neon sign with Dick's in a bright red script font makes the corner look like 1957. Cisco stands next to her, shuffling his feet restlessly. Over the black sleeveless tank he wears for gigs, he's thrown a flannel shirt to guard against the post-midnight chill. Usually they have plenty to say to each other, but Rory doesn't feel like talking. She really wants to earn her place in the crew. After bearing all the risk of short cons by herself for years, she likes being part of a team. She likes these guys. She even trusts Manny, Danny, and Quinn. The jobs have been fun. Quinn's planning displays more imagination than the short cons she ran before she found him. But the only plans Quinn has for stopping Bach tonight begin with her as bait. In Korea, she sat 3 feet across a table from the young billionaire. She remembers the hardness in his gaze, the cruelty of his grip crushing her wrist, the disturbing mix of aloof intellect and impassioned superstition. She shudders. Cold, huh? Cisco says, misinterpreting her tremble. Give me the money and wait in the van, I'll handle the order. Rory smiles. Thanks, but with drinks, you can't carry an order for 6. Just saying, Cisco responds. He looks away. They stand in the chill air, then advance 1 spot as a customer ahead of them, laden with warm bags, leaves the window. What happens to you on stage? Cisco asks. Lost in worry, Rory surfaces from her thoughts. What? Like here we are, you're just a basic person. When she glares at him, he hastens to correct. Not basic, I mean normal, no offense. But on stage, you're a beast. You have this. In his search for the right word, he gestures with his arms and shoulders as if making himself bigger. This presence. She can't figure out why he's flattering her. Thanks? But like, how? Where does that come from? When you go from nice to fierce? Rory shrugs. I'm an actress. Same way I play Queen of Shadows or the beat-up domestic victim. It's just acting. You want to know a secret? What? Most of the time I wonder if I'm pulling it off. Did I do too little? Did I play it too big? Will people see what a fake I am? No way, Cisco exclaims. Seriously? She's puzzled that he's puzzled. Yeah. I don't know about, he whispers, the cons, then returns to his normal voice to say, but with Shadowfast, take it as big as you can. Play it all the way. That's metal, right? Rory stares at him dubiously. I can go pretty big. At some point it's just obnoxious, Cisco. No, for anyone else, sure. But for you, presence. On the word, he shapes his arms and hunches like a werewolf. You can sell it. I've never met anyone like you. They move forward one more position in the queue. Love your outfit, a female voice says. Rory looks around. In the line to one side of them, back where she hadn't seen, a plump young woman smiles. She has short hair dyed bright green, a nose ring, small dark eyes, and a black t-shirt that reads, Not Today, Jesus. On the cuff of her unzipped windbreaker, a little insignia reads, Microsoft Dynamics 2019. Are you cosplaying an X-Man? Rory smiles back. No. Whatever you're doing, it looks dark and cool. Rory mentally debates. Should she go for it? She decides, practice makes perfect. They call me the Queen of Shadows, she says, stepping out of line. Would you permit me to touch your forehead? Chapter 10. Libby Hansen swings her 12-year-old Corolla into the parking slot at Dick's, turns the ignition off, and sits back, blowing out her stress. She hadn't expected the stupid quarter-end sales report to take so long to compile and format. She had to miss going for drinks with Keiko and Jamala just because Teams forced an auto-update onto her laptop, and she had to wait for it to finish so she could upload the report. But, at last, she can reward herself with a Dick's Deluxe and fries. She clambers out of the Corolla, wincing at the pain as her knees lift her heavy frame. She thinks again of leaving her day job and chillin' with her brother in Anchorage. That would be less stressful, right? But she loves the smart counterculture scene in Seattle. Is there anything sort of like it in Anchorage? Or is it all, whatever, lumberjacks and sled dogs and deadliest catch fishermen? She takes a step toward the walk-up windows, then remembers, oh yeah, money. She reaches into her car's back seat and gets her KEXP tote bag, which she uses like a purse on workdays so she can also shove in a lunch, a tablet, maybe a change of shoes. No point in locking her shitty car. There's a cop car right over there and she can see her car from the line. She walks self-consciously across the lot and joins the shortest line. The air smells of charred meat and hot grease. Her mood lifts. Sucky day, but it's over. Waiting alone, she people watches. She likes to pretend she can read people. Okay, middle-aged woman with white hair but a youngish face. Oxblood dress over navy leggings, tan Chelsea boots. Probably an office manager or executive assistant whose college-age kids disrespect her and ignore her advice. Frat boys, bleck. Sports. Needy and stupid, obsessed with their dicks. Cannot be reasoned with. Avoid. Grandpa type. Checked flannel shirt, cheap blue jeans, cheap running shoes. Sad, tired look on his face, eyes unfocused. Watches 60 Minutes and Fox News and believes every word they say. Poor sheeple. Ooh, handsome Latino guy. Slender, cool facial hair. Too bad he's here with some chick. Wait, check her out. Shiny black pants. Leather or pleather? Hey, the legs end with little zippers on them, and is that an ankle holster poking out? Badass. Spikes on her jacket shoulders. Wow, her hair is fierce and gloriously everywhere. So much jewelry. What is she? A rock star? An actress? Gotta talk to her. "Hey," Libby calls. The woman doesn't hear her. God, I'd kill to be that slender. She tries again, a little louder. "Love your outfit." That did it. The woman turns to her. Oh God, those eyes. Not just the blue, but her makeup. The perfect cat eye, super smoky lids. Maybe she's playing a glamorous superhero? Libby smiles. "Are you cosplaying an X-Man?" "No." "Whatever you're doing, it looks dark and cool." The woman looks at her all like super analytical. "They call me the Queen of Shadows," she says. "I was right. That is cool." "Hey, she's coming over." "Would you permit me to touch your forehead?" Libby laughs. "Why?" "I get impressions. Sometimes they help people." "Why the hell not?" "Okay. I'm Rory." "I'm Libby." "Hi, Libby. Don't be afraid. I'm not psychic and I don't run a cult or anything. I don't want to sell you crystals or classes or something." "That's good, because I was going to ask you to join my cult." "What a relief. My chickens almost got too old to sacrifice." They laugh together. Libby relaxes because anyone you can riff with is usually cool. Rory lifts her hand. Even her hand looks cool. She has long black nails, super glossy and flawless. She wears at least 4 rings, all sort of pewter and clunky. Libby gets a fleeting impression of them, skulls and runes and an ankh. And then the soft, warm hand rests on her forehead where she can't see it. Rory has her eyes closed. "Whoa," she says, and then hits Libby with her intense blue high beams. Sounding impressed and slightly surprised, she says, "You are really smart. That comes off you so strongly. You think things through deeply. You choose to think for yourself." Libby feels her face turn warm at the unexpected praise. "I try," she demurs. Rory closes her eyes again. "You're employed. You work. Feels like you work full time." She opens her eyes and gazes earnestly at Libby. "You're competent and respected at work, but there's so much more in you that they know nothing about. To them, you're a good contributor, but low ranking. You know that inside you is greatness, a destiny. Do you relate to these statements?" Libby feels a jolt in her heart. That's exactly what I think every day." Her eyes moisten and she fights it. Only an idiot cries in front of a stranger. Rory takes both of Libby's hands, holds them palms up and inspects them. Rory's hands feel warm, and Libby can't remember the last time she felt a basic human touch. "What is the greatness inside you, Libby?" "Oh, I don't feel great. I'm only..." She runs out of words. She believes somewhere deep inside she could be great, but she doesn't want to say it and be mocked. Look past feeling ordinary. They want you to feel that so they can push you around. What are you good at? What's your superpower? Truthfully, blending in is her superpower. But if she has permission to stand out, geez, the world looks completely different. "I have opinions, lots of opinions. I know everybody does, but my friends say mine are, I don't know, funny, interesting. They're original, that's for sure." "Original opinions that are interesting," Rory summarizes, still holding Libby's hands. "Could someone also call that insight?" Something lovely blooms inside of Libby. She's not merely a smartass mouthing off from life's balcony. She has insight. Mutely, she nods. Her eyes get a little wetter. "If you have insight, does it seem fair to withhold it from the world?" The answer is so clear. No. "How can you share your insight with the world?" "I don't know. So many ways." A million plans flood into Libby's mind. Her spirit jumps into the future, and she sees herself in front of a packed theater, the sold-out meetup for her wildly successful podcast. She sees herself receiving a plaque from YouTube commemorating her 100,000th subscriber. Or maybe she's one of a panel of celebrities providing live streaming commentary for the red carpet at the MTV Awards. She's hanging out with Dan Harmon, swapping ideas for episodes of Rick and Morty. Rory lets go of her hands. Something just opened in you, a vision. I sense it. Libby takes in a shuddering breath, nods, and finally the tears fall. She came for a burger and, as a side dish, got validated to her core. It's a lot to take in. Rory pulls off one of her rings, places it in Libby's palm, and folds her fingers over it. Here, keep it, to remind you of this moment, of your vision. Libby looks down. It's a chunky nickel ring. The face of it shows an Egyptian hieroglyph that she dimly recalls is the Eye of Ra. She sniffs, then looks up quizzically. Rory says, "The all-seeing eye has been around for thousands of years in different forms. It's even on the dollar bill. Usually it represents how God sees everything, but for you it's different." Rory taps the ring in Libby's hand. "You're the all-seeing eye. You have insight. Ride your insight to greatness." Libby looks up thunderstruck. She believes. She throws her arms wide and hugs Rory, who hugs her back. "You are so kind," Libby blubbers. When they part, a voice behind them asks, "So are you in line, or—" Libby looks and realizes during their conversation the line has moved forward 2 customers, but she hasn't moved up with it. She steps up hurriedly. Then she looks back at Rory and asks, "Who are you?" "What are you?" Rory smiles mischievously. "I'm the same thing you are." "A woman?" She grins. "A rock star." Libby laughs, not a courtesy laugh, not an ironic laugh, a joyous laugh because in this moment it feels true. Only one customer separates Cisco from ordering when Rory finds him again. He stares at her, marveling. "See? That's what I'm talking about. You didn't know her, right?" Rory shakes her head. "How do you do that with a stranger? In less than a minute, she's happy crying." She studied cold reads and practiced hard, so it was all obvious to her. A person carrying an NPR tote bag and wearing an anti-religious t-shirt? Obviously, they think they're intellectual. A Microsoft jacket, but no expensive clothes? Obviously, she's the kind of worker bee that a major corporation barely respects. Greatness? Shit. Everyone thinks they can offer more than others know. Touching the mark's head and hands? The unexpected intimacy cows people so they think she has authority. To her, the techniques are easy to do. The only thing that makes her different from other fake psychics was her choice to uplift the woman rather than trick her. How does she do it? Rory can't boil it all down to a simple answer for Cisco, and long habit has trained her not to try. Instead, she resorts to her default. She gives him a smile she hopes is enigmatic. A shrill whistle pierces the night. Everyone in line stops talking and looks to the left. It's Cooper, beckoning urgently. "Skip it," he calls. "The man called. We're bugging out." Cisco and Rory abandon the line and hurry for the van. She's glad she took a swing at an impromptu cold read. Sometimes she takes her skill for granted. Now she thinks, maybe she has a chance. During her rematch with Brody Bach. Chapter 11. 1:23 a.m. Sitting in the shotgun seat, Quinn listens intently on his phone, ignoring Cisco and Rory as they pile into the van. "His house?" Quinn repeats. "But which one? Orca's Island?" He pulls the phone away from his face to check the time, then returns it to his ear. "It's 1:23 a.m. Orca's is a 3-hour drive from here, and the ferries aren't run—" He listens. "Hang on." He slaps the mute button on the phone. You, he says to Cisco, freshly returned to the driver's seat. Get us on I-5 heading north. You, he points at Manny, get all you can on the layout of Bach's mansion on Orcas Island. He stabs a finger at Cooper and Danny. You, pick the weapons out of the junk in the back and get them combat ready. He looks at Rory, and despite the dark in the back of the van, he can see her steel blue eyes watching him. You're up, like we discussed. Psych up for it. He sees her swallow hard, then nod. He unmutes the phone as Cisco turns the van to point out the driveway. We're rolling. How does this work? We head north on the interstate, got it, but if he triggers his attack in 1:40 and we're 3 hours away... He listens again. Then he glares at the phone. He disconnected, he fumes. Fuck the man. As he pockets the phone, he grumbles to Danny kneeling behind him. Blind obedience, not my strong suit. Cooper hands a magazine to Danny, who speaks while checking its load. How do we get to Orcas before 3? President Jerkoff said he's calling in a big favor. He told me, drive north on I-5, keep my phone line open, it will all make sense. Huh. Danny pulls and releases the charging handle on his rifle. Will be first time. Quinn tells Cisco, step on it, Jeeves. Cisco accelerates. I still don't get that. Are you saying cheese? Yeah, hurry, cheese. 45th Street humps over Interstate 5, so Quinn sees below a sneak preview of traffic heading north on the freeway before they use the on-ramp. Unlike any other time of day, the lanes stretch dark and lonely. No cars, no headlights. When they hit the on-ramp, he tells Cisco, let's see what the van can do. Open her up. 80, Cisco answers. Huh? That's what the van can do. It's loaded, man. 80 miles per hour tops. Quinn hears rattles and thuds from the back as Cooper tries to uncover the anvil case with the last rocket in it. Quinn swivels the seat to face backwards. Cooper, when you've got that, he says, huddle up. Let's plan. Manny, sitting on the anvil case containing the discharged rocket, studies a laptop screen with a blueprint on it. This is no ordinary mansion, he says. Bach has sensor floors. Each room checks your weight, then looks in a database to see if you're permitted in that room. If not, alerts and alarms. Well, shit, Quinn says. Any chance some of us match an authorized weight? Might not matter, Manny says, typing and peering. You also need a PIN code for your phone, and you have to carry the phone everywhere you go. It's not just one building. There's the 4-story mansion built right into the hill, and a pool house, a couple of guest houses, some building I can't identify yet. Good, more ways in, Danny says. If the house senses phones, that means he can't use Wi-Fi or RF jammers at the mansion, Quinn observes. Danny peers over Manny's shoulder. The laptop displays photos from a magazine feature about Bach's mansion. Here, he points. To there. Manny nods appreciatively. Huh. Mr. Parkour wouldn't need the floor in that room. Cooper and Rory kneel around Quinn as best they can, swaying with the van, as they join with Manny and Danny in discussing how to penetrate building security and where the transmission room might be. After 5 minutes of the van humming north on I-5, Cisco says, I feel like I see this too often. Quinn pulls his attention out of planning and checks his external rear view. Ice blue police lights flash behind them in the distance, pursuing. Keep rolling, he orders Cisco. If the man is pulling favors, let's see what he's got. You know, I can't outrun them, right? Go down swinging, muchacho. Está bien, compa. Barely discernible over the van's road noise, a rumble in the night grows in volume enough to grab Quinn's attention. What the fuck is that? Rory asks. She presses her face against the back window. Quinn checks his rearview mirror, but only sees the flashing police lights, drawing ever closer. Danny threads his way to the back window. Like Rory, he looks into the night sky. Moose, he marvels. Manny jerks his head up from his laptop as the rumble in the sky grows louder. "You don't mean—" "C-17, Danny affirms. He shoots another glance out the window. "It's getting low." A shadow falls over Quinn's lap. He didn't think any light reached the van other than the occasional street light, but now the jumbo aircraft blocks out the moon, dramatically cutting all ambient light. When his phone buzzes, it lights like a beacon inside the van. "Who is this?" he answers. "I-5 North approach, white van. This is Bobcat 251, a male voice says. It has that thin headset sound, like astronauts talking to Houston Control. "What is a—" The voice continues. "Crosswind and short approach. C-17 Sol 2 coming in. Brace for tactical airlift. No delay." Quinn cannot catch on. "Airlift?" The C-17's engine deafens him from above. He strains to hear. "I don't—" The pilot's voice barely registers above the roar. "I am to inform you that I am a friend of the man." Chapter 12, 1:42 a.m. The pilot's voice crackles out of Quinn's phone. "Do you know your weight?" Caught off guard, Quinn responds, "About 200 on a good day." The voice on the phone chuckles. "Your vehicle." "Doe!" Quinn says, imitating Homer Simpson. Then he shouts over the rumble to Cisco, "How much do we weigh?" Cisco does mental math. "Maybe 6,600 pounds? With the gear?" 3.5 to 3.75 tons, Quinn yells into his phone. "Piece of cake," the voice says. "Can you roll any faster?" "Can we go any faster?" Quinn asks Cisco. Cisco responds by flattening the gas pedal to the floor. The van goes no faster. "Negatory," Quinn tells the voice. Another chuckle comes over the phone. "You're about to. Brace!" "Brace, brace, brace," Quinn shouts as the rumble and road noise drown out the sound of the pursuing police sirens. In his peripheral vision, he sees his team grabbing for handles or pushing themselves against the wall as he spins forward and rebuckles his seatbelt. He checks the rearview mirror, and the police lights are almost on them. He can count 3 cars now. The rumble from overhead grows so loud that he no longer hears the sirens, the van, or even his own thoughts. The van quivers with noise. A deafening thunk from the roof coincides with the entire van hopping. The gear resting on the bed of the van leaps and crashes in sympathy. Then suddenly the van rushes ahead, doubling in speed. Cisco gibbers inarticulate noises at the sprinter's unexpected behavior, sliding his hands around the steering wheel and yanking his feet off the pedals. He knows to turn into a skid, but what do you do when... Through the windshield, Quinn sees the freeway, with its line of lampposts stretching before them into the night, smoothly sink away. The pit of his stomach plummets to his ankles, and the band gives out a collective, "Whoa!" "LZ in 10 mics, the voice on the phone says. "Shift into neutral and release all brakes because you'll touch down twice as fast as you were driving." "Oh my God," Rory shouts from the back. "We're flying." She burst into hysterical laughter. Manny shoots a look at Danny. "Electromagnet?" Danny nods with an uncharacteristic grin on his face. His fist forms devil horns. "So fucking metal!" Cooper Belly laughs. Suddenly all the band is whooping and backslapping and laughing as the van climbs and climbs into the sky. Quinn smashes his nose against his window, laughing as the police lights drop away far behind them. Cisco, relieved of driving duties temporarily, hooks his phone to the van's stereo system and within seconds blasts a song from the speakers. Ozzy Osbourne sings "Flying High Again." Even though Manny and Danny can't exactly sing, when the song gets to the chorus, the whole band bellows along. Then Quinn figures, "What the hell?" and powers his window down. Freezing air rushes in. With polarized interference from the giant electromagnet on the roof, and the change in aerodynamics, the magnetized signs on the sides of the van peel away. He watches the one on his side as the rushing air tears it off, tumbling as it plummets. When he worries about who it might land on, he realizes the C-17 carries them over the waters of Puget Sound. There are no roads in the sky. They're making for Orcas Island directly as the extremely steroidal turbocharged crow flies. He checks the time. When he realizes they'll land around 1:45 a.m., he exults inside. They have a solid chance to stop Bach and redeem themselves. The air up here, icy, fast and thin, cannot be tolerated with the window open. But he just has to see. He thrusts his head out the window, facing the back, then cranes to look up. Shockingly, close above them, the C-17's enormous belly shows as a black blob in the night. It dwarfs everything with its majestic 175-foot length. The van dangling from it feels the size of a Hot Wheel. As Quinn pulls his head in and powers up the window, he chuckles that the man sent a $200 million military aircraft to haul their fake used ice cream truck to the enemy. He sits back and savors the view. The hills of Whidbey Island poke up below, reminding him incongruously of flying past Neverland on the Peter Pan ride at Disneyland. Then they rise above the clouds and he can see nothing else below. His right arm feels frozen from the cold, rushing air. He checks behind him to make sure his crew is okay, and he finds them excited and united. The four in the back play air instruments along with Ozzy, banging their heads to the beat. If Mr. Licks can fly, anything is possible. Maybe, just maybe, they can take down this bastard and outwit the man. Chapter 13. 1:53 a.m. Orcas Island rushes up at them, fast. "You got it in neutral?" Quinn shouts again under the roar. Cisco laughs. "That's the only way Mr. Licks will ever roll at 200 miles per." The pilot on the phone announces, "There's only one straight stretch of road, right on the shore. Prep for wheels down." "Prep for wheels down, solid copy," Quinn answers. He thought he would see the sound sparkling in the moonlight, but the cloud cover diffuses the pale light too much to reflect off the water. The ribbon of a two-lane highway, illuminated periodically by streetlights, seems to float in endless black. It looks tiny, like a detailed model for a train set, as the C-17 banks to align with it. The van swings out to one side from centrifugal force, gently tilting them. As it settles back into straight vertical alignment with the gigantic plane, it reminds Quinn of a spinning carnival ride, until the road comes at them fast, fast, fast. The pilot does pretty well releasing the electromagnet when they're only 12 inches off the ground, so that he doesn't haul them down the road at flight speeds. But when the van drops all its weight onto its suspension with a loud crunch, it feels like an asphalt fist smacked them upside the head. Quinn nearly has a panic attack from seeing street lamps and a gas station flash by at twice the speed he's ever experienced in a car. There's no time to react before the next thing flies at you. A sign for Warm Valley, something zips by so fast he can't even glimpse the third word. He glances worriedly at Cisco, only to see him wearing a peaceful, easy grin as he aims the van straight. For an autohound like him, rolling in anything at super speed is his happy place. He gently taps the brakes now and then to bleed off speed. With no traffic on the road, he can baby the brake pads. After a mile, the van has slowed to 80 and he can begin downshifting, letting the engine help the brakes slow momentum. Quinn doesn't even notice the C-17 soaring away. But when the van finally slows to 5 miles an hour, hardly more than walking speed, he notices the silence. He powers his window down again and can hear the quiet crunch of tires on pavement. He smells salt water on the still night air. Cooper ad-libs in his best announcer voice, "Thank you for flying air guitar. We realize you have a choice when it comes to tactical airlifts, and we're glad you chose." When the laughter dies down, Rory asks, "Where the hell are we?" Manny says, looking at Google Maps on his laptop, "As anybody knows, my dear, we're near the intersection of Orcas and Exton." Rory scoffs, then repeats, "Where the hell are we?" Quinn looks around. Nothing illuminates the night. The roads are the only sign of civilization. Trees and pasture, asleep in the dark, surround them. "Google Maps says 12 minutes to Bach's home address," Manny says. "That means Cisco can do it in 7. Do a U-E. Follow this road back to the ferry terminal." Cisco cranks the wheel and turns the van around. Cooper asks, "We just gonna drive up to his front door?" "We can't," Manny says. "It's on the water." "A C-17 dive bombing the island isn't exactly a sneak attack," Rory points out. "They know we're coming." "But they don't know what we're doing," Quinn says. "We can approach from the back, the side, from anywhere. We just have to get within range of his Wi-Fi network." "Then it's all up to me," Manny says. "And then me," Rory says. "It's up to all of us," Quinn reminds them. "Just like it's always been, us against them." "I hope we save the U.S., Cisco says, "but I'd settle for saving Muchacho Noche." "Shit, yeah," Cooper says. "He's an us." Chapter 14. Indeterminate Date and Time. Suddenly, the bile insists on leaving, and when it boils up from his guts and out his mouth, it wakes Nightboy. When the vomit hits his lap, he tries to jump up. He can't. That's how he discovers he's tied to a wooden chair, with his arms behind him. His arms feel cold and tingly, with no sensation in his fingers. Alone in a dim room, he can't remember what happened. His head aches like crazy, especially at the back of his skull. It hurts to hold his head up, so he lets it hang. His dangling hair blocks his vision to either side. Some time passes. He's not sure if he blacked out again or not, but the warm vomit on his crotch and thighs is now cold. Everything hurts and his nose itches. He tries to roust himself. Even his confused lizard brain knows that when someone ties you up, they mean you no good. Despite the ache in his skull, he holds his head up and peers around. 1,000,000 bottles of wine surround him, laid down on their sides and marching away in dozens of aisles, with the aisles circling in the air. Then his vision coalesces, so he is in one wine cellar, not two, and reality snaps into place. Okay, it's a lot of wine, but more like a couple hundred bottles in 3 aisles. The only light comes from some old-timey sconces, spread across the brick wall at the other end of the cellar, digitally imitating candlelight. He tests his bonds. Duct tape grips his ankles tightly to the 2 front chair legs, with no play. He can't see what ties his hands, but it feels scratchy and man-made. Maybe paracord. No give there either. Should he call for help? His mental processes feel fuzzy and slow, but eventually he concludes no one would tie him up, leave him unconscious, but also offer, "If you need anything, just call me." He decides not to draw attention to himself. Why is he here? He tries to think back. He recalls helping load the van with sound gear. That seems to be his last memory. He tries to remember something later in the day, closer to now. There was a guy who he feels good about. Who was he? His mind drifts into a reverie. After a gap, he finds himself waking up with drool hanging from his lips. God, his head aches. It's dead silent in the room. No faucet drips, no rodent feet scuttle. Nothing makes a sound. He can hear his own pulse. His breathing seems too loud. He feels clearer now. He remembers a name. Brody Bach. That's the guy they were going to catch. They, meaning That guy who is nice to him, King, Win, Quinn, and the hot chick he's not allowed to think is hot, and tall guy and muscle guy and some others. Wasn't there a cool driver guy and a blonde asshole? He shakes his head to clear his thoughts. His skull shatters and little demons stab each shard. When the pain subsides and he stops gasping, he takes inventory. He can scooch around in the chair a little, enough to rub the small of his back on the wooden ladder back. He has a main knife sheath clipped to the back of his belt. By rubbing on the chair, he can feel the sheath is empty. By looking down and scrunching his chin around, he learns that the knuckle knife he wears on a chain around his neck is gone. He wiggles each foot around in its duct tape restraint, trying to twist in creative ways. A lack of rigidity between his ankles and his shins tells him his ankle knives are gone. But when he looks at his waist, he still wears a belt. And the belt has its big-ass buckle, which means he still has a sneaky little belt knife in there. If they had found it, they would have taken the entire belt. With his hands tied behind his back, what can he do about it? Nothing. How strong is this chair? He takes a deep breath, then with all his might, he pushes his feet forward and his back, and simultaneously tries to stand, in effect, trying to spread the right angle of the chair into a straight line. A feeble chair might wobble or even break. This one doesn't give a single millimeter. After 10 seconds of straining, he collapses back into the seat, panting, his head pounding. The nausea starts to well up again. He fights it. He manages to force the stomach convulsions back down. It leaves ragged fluid in his airway. He retches, then coughs. Each cough feels like his head expands and shrinks with the percussion, like a cartoon. The percussive sound bounces around the cellar, off the glass bottles and concrete floor and brick walls. Something about the dying sound, and the silence before it, and the subterranean chill he now notices, tells him he is underground. He gets around to wondering, who the hell owns this much wine? A billionaire, that's who. It dawns on him. He is probably a captive of Brody Bach. This might even be Brody's house. And a dude who has as much to lose as Brody certainly will not lose it all by letting a scrawny mental case tell the world he was held captive in the billionaire's basement. Nightboy breaks into a sweat. He hears two deep voices coming toward the wine cellar. He can't make out the words, but he recognizes the boisterous tone of macho men bragging to each other. Out of his view, the door to the room bursts open just as the men's conversation crescendos in very nasty laughs. The laughter bounces around the room with a tone that makes the cellar darker. His motto pops into his head, "Have a nefarious day." He thinks he's about to, but not in a good way. Chapter 15, 1:58 a.m. Cisco slows the van until it creeps quietly. As he veers onto the road's shoulder, the mossy gravel vanishes when he douses the headlights. The tires crunch along softly while everyone peers out the windshield as best they can in the dark. "That's it?" Cooper says. "I mean, that's nice, but it's not 63 million nice." "That's the top floor seen from the back," Quinn explains. "The 3 stories below it are built into the hill and face the water." "Why would the front door face the water?" "So you can come and go in your yacht, genius." Manny takes a moment to look up from his screen and see for himself. He pops up from sitting on the case, looks, and sits back down. In the crowded van, given his height, if he can see, no one else can. There's not much for him to learn from this angle. A single streetlight illuminates a guard shack and a barrier at the mouth of a long driveway. And then, a half-mile later, a building resembles a ski chalet with stone walls, topped with a pair of cupolas barely peeking over the tops of the pines. It's the top of the main house, but the least interesting aspect of the compound. The good stuff is buried inside the hill. They're probably rolling right over it. Closer, Cisco, Manny says. I don't see their network yet. Running out of road, amigo, unless you want me to ram the guard shack. Manny looks down at his screen where he runs a command line interface called NetSH that comes with Windows. He needs to find Bach's wireless network, which they know must exist, or none of his fancy security measures could work. But Manny figures Bach is too technically savvy to broadcast his SSID, the service set identifier that names his network. Average people don't realize you can turn it off and still have Wi-Fi, but Bach would know. And hackers like Manny know how to find any Wi-Fi signal in the area, whether it shows its SSID or not. He refreshes the command netshw LAN show networks, mode equals BSSID. This far up in the hills on an island, only one wireless network shows. It's Xfinity Wi-Fi, a completely unsecured signal that Comcast sets up almost anywhere a Comcast wireless access point is active. Manny thinks, no way that's Bach's network. The van stops. Manny knows where this is going, and he stabs the function key that dims his screen. Fine, he says, before Cisco tells him there's nowhere left to drive. We change from war driving to war walking. At least I can see the house from here. He looks at Cooper. I can't watch the screen and watch for enemies. You and me, big guy, Cooper says, reaching for his rifle. Thanks. Cooper makes his way to the back and pops the door. Let's do this. As Manny's booted feet hit the asphalt, he hears the wind rushing through the tops of the towering pines. He doesn't look both ways before crossing the street because the silence tells him there's no traffic for miles. He and Cooper roadie run across the road into the forest, heading for the main lodge. The guard shack, far to their left, faces the driveway, so it has a blind spot where they cross. The ground slopes down sharply, and Manny almost falls. From staring into his computer screen, he has no night vision at all. Slow down, he whispers to Cooper. I can't see. Cooper just pats him on his upper arm. Manny turns his laptop screen away and down. It acts like the world's dimmest flashlight, showing him a shadowy path among the pine trunks and ferns. They thread toward the house silently for a couple of minutes, ever closer. When Manny sees a big boulder with a flat top at about the right height for him to sit on, he taps Cooper and signals, "Stop." He sits on the boulder and faces his laptop. NetSH still doesn't show much. But different Wi-Fi scanners get different results. On a hunch, he opens Net Surveyor. He clicks the Network Discovery tab and gives it a second to search for radio signals. It finds 4 networks. Manny ignores the networks named Xfinity Wi-Fi, Guest, and Media Room. He immediately focuses on the one Net Surveyor calls unknown SSID-BSSID because that's how the program shows a hidden network. The beacon quality of the hidden SSID is strong. Manny grunts. Cooper, who has his back to him pulling surveillance, looks at Manny. He whispers, "What?" Manny grins. He whispers back, "Let the games begin. Just so you know, I'm not doing no war dance. That's Maori, I'm Samoan, and even if you did the haka, you couldn't scare a flea." Then Manny gets busy. If Cooper bantered back, he never noticed. The rushing wind in the trees could also be the sound of his fingers flying over the keyboard. Chapter 16. 2:03 a.m. Like many professionals, Manny enjoys hate-watching movies that portray his expertise with utter inaccuracy. His least favorite hacker movie is Swordfish, which romanticizes hacking as something you do using 6 monitors at once, and if you're good, you can pull off a 60-minute attack in 60 seconds. Bullshit. Manny's too busy to stop and count, but he figures there are about 9 stages to taking over someone's network. He's playing for keeps. He's not going to get on Brody's network and simply make noise. He's not going to encrypt a primary server and demand ransomware. He's not going to drop a keystroke catcher, then run. With no prior preparation, using just this netbook, which normally runs the lighting sequences for Shadowfast shows, he's going to make Brody's network his own. He has a few basic tools on a USB stick that he always keeps with him. He pops the stick into the laptop's port, then when it shows up in Explorer, he navigates to a folder. When Manny was married, the youth choir his daughter sang in participated in a big all-state choir concert with a finale that combined the state's best youth choirs into a massive 600-voice choir. During the final rehearsal, her choir stood on risers in their special sections, grouped soprano, alto, tenor, bass. The conductor assigned each singer a number, which showed where they should stand. Because the singers were 12 to 15 years old, she made each person pin their number to their clothes. The underfunded music program had no money for buses, so for the public performance in the state capitol, every kid had to find their own way from their town to the venue. After rehearsal, their carefully ordered choir burst into individual singers, some taking cars, some taking mass transit, some going in groups, some going individually to the destination. At the other end, they each arrived at slightly different times, and 2 kids didn't show up at all for whatever reasons. But because of their pinned numbers, the singers all reassembled, standing in the proper order, and started the show. Which is exactly how data travels across the internet, except when you type a search string into Google and it sends the answer to you. Rather than singers, you get data packets, and instead of pinned-on numbers, the packets find their proper order based on ID numbers in their packet headers. Manny needs to get onto the secret Wi-Fi network he just found, but he has 2 barriers to hurdle. He must work around the fact that the network traffic is encrypted, thus scrambled and unreadable. Then he must authenticate to the network, so he looks like a user who belongs and doesn't immediately trigger defenses that kick him off. In cybersecurity terms, he needs initial access, then persistence. He fires up Wireshark. Wireshark captures all the random packets converging on the hidden WAP, or wireless access point, puts them in order, and analyzes them. He tells Wireshark to passively record whatever traffic is passing at unknown SSID BSSID. After a minute, he stops recording. He opens Wireshark's log of captured packets. The packet analyzer shows every packet's little pinned-on number and a lot of other information, such as whether the packet is web traffic or mail traffic or part of a file. Now he can read the real name of the wireless access point, or WAP, that was trying to hide. It's called 58:8B:F:3:E:6:18:77. Cool. He can also see the WAP operates on channel 11. Noted. Even though encryption scrambles the traffic, if he knows the traffic contains the network's login password, he can find ways to decrypt it. To know he's recorded the password somewhere within the encrypted traffic, he needs to record users authenticating to the wireless network. But it's after 0200 hours, and they've got to stop Bach from transmitting before 0300. He can't lounge around waiting for someone perchance to authenticate. Manny opens aircrack NG. He uses it to send deauth to the WAP. The command immediately deauthenticates every device attached to that WAP. But because a good WAP tries to maintain a steady connection with the devices relying on it, it lets all the devices he just kicked off automatically re-authenticate. In seconds, aircrack NG lets him know it got the authentication traffic by displaying a message on its little black and white terminal. WPA handshake B0C7457539E. The string of digits separated by colons is the name of a file aircrack just made containing the login password. Manny busts passwords all the time. He has multiple files containing hundreds of passwords, and larger files listing thousands of passwords, and a couple of text files containing millions of passwords. Because he's in a hurry, he selects a text file that contains 1,000 of the most common passwords, and he runs it against the file Aircrack just captured. With his laptop's 10th generation i9 multi-core processor, he gets the result in 1 second. It's negative. None of the 1,000 common passwords work for this WAP. This doesn't discourage Manny. All that means is that the network password is not something brain-dead like 123456 or 69 password 69. He has a second file that he prepared after Danny broke into Noble Mountain, and it contains 10,000 of North America's most used passwords, plus custom guesses related to Skyhouse, Brody Bach, and the names of most Skyhouse products and services. He runs the Aircrack file against it. While he waits for Aircrack to parse his word list, he looks up for the first time in minutes and realizes he can't see Cooper. He places the laptop gently next to him on the boulder, then stands in the carpet of pine needles and peers all around in the dark. He sees a teeny pinprick of a green light, 50 feet away, flickering on and off. It appears to be drawing near. It's too late, but Manny tries to ease his big frame behind a pine tree. Then he realizes his laptop is happily glowing away on the rock, fans whirring due to its intensive processing. There's no hiding. Turns out he doesn't need to. "Manny," Cooper stage whispers. Manny steps out from behind the tree. Now he can make out Cooper's face under tree-filtered moonlight. "What are you doing?" Cooper has something in his hands. "Is this anything?" Manny looks down. Cooper holds out a walkie-talkie handset and a smartphone. "What is this?" "I got tired of waiting for you, so I went over to the shack and cold-cocked the guard. I took these." He offers the communication devices again. Manny grins. "Yeah, these are something." Cooper looks pleased with himself. "Thought so." Manny grabs the phone. The screen shows a solitaire app open and in mid-game. "Ha! We don't even have to guess this guy's password." He taps and swipes to open the settings. The phone is attached to the house Wi-Fi network. Just then, Manny's laptop dings. He steps over and looks at the screen. Aircrack just alerted him that it found the password for the hidden network. It uses numbers in place of vowels, such as a 0 for an O, but basically it reads, "Brody Bach's the man." Manny stifles laughter. He turns the display toward Cooper and says, "Check out this password." Cooper looks, then rolls his eyes. "Geez, one time on stage, it's like we changed his life." "We're going to change it again. Tell Quinn gimme 10 minutes, 15 tops, and this network's mine." "I ain't your servant. Tell him yourself." "I'm not acting superior, backslap. I need every minute I can get to elevate privileges over the network. If I go to the van, the laptop falls out of Wi-Fi range." "Fine. Need anything else? Order of fries? A bourbon old-fashioned? Feather pillow?" "No, but when you get back, I'll need you to dance a haka." Cooper snorts a suppressed laugh, then turns to go. "Sit your fat ass on that rock and get busy. That's a hacker haka." "Damn straight," Manny mutters. "Nothing scarier." "Oh." Cooper turns back. "I grabbed this too, but I figure it's for Quinn." Manny squints in the dark. Finally, he can make out Cooper holds a staff ID badge. As Cooper's footsteps fade into the night, Manny scritches around on his trackpad and calls up some scripts he saved from GitHub PowerShell Mafia Powersploit. "Okay, Brody," he mumbles. "Let's test your defenses against fileless malware." He isn't loading malware onto the network. He's not sending a virus or a worm. He's using the tools that come with Windows itself. He's within the network, commanding the network to give itself to him. As he types rapidly at the command line, he mutters, 6 monitors. My ass. Chapter 17. 2:14 a.m. Rory stands alone at the guard shack. The guard that was in it vanished, and so did the Shadowfast van. The team has dispersed around the property per Quinn's battle plan. Yet the tiny comms inset in her ear means she's not truly alone. They figure Bach's team will find it soon after she engages with them, so they've also planted a mic inside one of the spikes on her catsuit. They'll be able to hear her even if she can't hear them. Since she's driving the show, that will have to do. Nervously, she steps out of the yellow phosphor light blazing down on the shack. She's more comfortable in the shadows. As she hugs herself, the night wind lifts her hair. She just happens to be gazing in the right direction to see an owl glide by, a silent predator. Quietly, in her ear, Quinn's voice cues, "Shadow is go." "Go, heard," she acknowledges. She closes her eyes. She feels fear and tension in her gut, so she pretends the emotions are physically there as a thick, cold liquid in the pit of her stomach. She gathers the liquid, feels it, concentrates it, until her breath comes short and shallow. Then she releases all the fear. She imagines her leg is a hollow pipe, and the fear drains down it, out a hole in her heel, and disperses into the forest. She visualizes power and rage replacing it, pouring into her spirit like hot lava. She lets it fill her. She focuses on how Bach condescended to her, how across that table in Seoul he grabbed her like a dog. She remembers how she had power over him when she spoke for his mother. When her eyes open again, his mansion no longer looks like a fortress. It's the trap where she has snared him. She strides up the driveway, heels clopping with authority on the asphalt. It takes her nearly 8 minutes to strut all the way up the half-mile. She stays in character, assuming as she draws closer that she enters more rings of security, probably surveillance cameras first, then visual contact from the house, then staff communicating by radio or intercom. Finally, she rounds a curve and can see the entrance. It reinforces the ski lodge vibe. Broad wooden beams form a sharp eave high above the double-wide door. Flagstone pillars flank the entry. Several feet still separate her from the door when a staff member opens it. A slender man in his 30s wearing the neon green Sky House polo under a windbreaker labeled security eases out, closing the door behind him. Rory doesn't slow one bit. "Take me to Brody Bach," she orders. The security guard smiles tightly and says, "That's not really how it works." Scanning his security badge, she says for Manny's benefit, "Look, Randy, ID 633545, clearly you don't know who I am. I just did business with Mr. Bach in Seoul, and the business is unfinished. Let's go." "I don't mean any disrespect," the guard says politely, "but I can't let you in because you're right. I don't know who you are. Perhaps if you'd show me your ID?" During Randy's statement, Manny has looked him up in the mansion's employee database and murmured in Rory's ear. "I am the Queen of Shadows," Rory declares, glowering at him. "I see all. You would know me if you didn't just start here 4 months ago. When I explained to Mr. Bach that you wouldn't let me in, how will you explain to your wife Jody that you lost your job? How will you afford food for your Great Danes?" Randy blanches at the mention of his wife and visibly startles at the mention of his dogs. Let me check with my shift supervisor. Perhaps we can arrange an accommodation." He opens the door. "Please wait here." "That's not really how it works," Rory says. She storms through the door as if he opened it for her. The entry opens upon a wide lobby, more like a hotel than a residence. Stone gray and off-white birch colors dominate, with lots of exposed beams intersecting high over a slate floor. To the left, a receptionist's desk bears a computer monitor. To the right, a door advertises restrooms. And straight ahead, stairs lead down. Rory is down the first flight of stairs to a landing before she hears Randy above talking to more security on his walkie-talkie. When she descends to the next floor, a blonde man and a red-headed woman, each wearing the staff's security windbreaker, await her. This room looks like a sumptuous mezzanine. Where the floor above featured nature neutrals, a decorator has filled this floor with jewel tones. Plush carpet and overstuffed blobby velvet chairs abound in amethyst, ruby, and sapphire. The man, looking fit with a narrow waist and swimmer's shoulders, lifts one palm at her. "Hold it there, miss. You are not authorized to be here." They block her path, standing side by side, forcing her to stop. "Stand down, Chris 100242. The Queen of Shadows authorizes herself to be anywhere she desires. I come for Brody Bach." The red-headed woman tries to misdirect her. "I'm sorry, what leads you to believe Mr. Bach is on the premises?" Rory runs her defiant gaze down and up the redhead, whose badge names her Courtney. Then Rory turns her attention back to Chris, as if Courtney does not exist. "Mr. Bach and I have unfinished business from Seoul. He will reward you for bringing me to him." She moves to shoulder between the guards. They back up a step, but reform their passive shoulder-to-shoulder roadblock. "You are trespassing," Chris says. "It is our right to force you off the property. Don't let it come to that. Turn around now, and we'll let you leave." Rory sighs as if running out of patience. She closes her eyes and makes woo-woo finger gestures at Chris. "I'm reading your aura," she intones. "You are a good employee. I sense your presence on these grounds stretching across 5 years. Commendations, I think. Ah, a promotion." She opens her eyes and drills into his. "You mean well. Take me to Bach and I promise not to harm you." Courtney's expression looks taken aback, but Chris breaks into an easy chuckle. "Harm me?" He shoots a smug look at Courtney. Then he leans in, nose to nose with Rory. "You? And what? Army?" Rory cries, projecting her voice like Maleficent, puffing up her chest and throwing her arms into a dramatic pose. "My invisible army!" For half a second, she's left hanging, frozen in her powerful pose and thinking to herself, "For fuck's sake, Manny, now!" Then Chris's and Courtney's walkies both squelch. "Weight sensors tracking multiple intrusions," a German-accented voice says, "doubled because the two guards have their radios side by side. West wing, all floors." Courtney rushes away, drawing her walkie from her belt to acknowledge. "You, stay," Chris barks at Rory. He strides to the corner of the room where a computer monitor awaits on a small writing desk. He frowns at it. He punches some keys. Rory can see him cycling through various camera feeds on the property. Room after room, there's no one there. Yet the sensors claim unauthorized weight in those rooms. The problem distracts Chris. He stands in front of the computer to check it briefly, but then he drops into the office chair, trying to account for the contradiction in their security systems. In his agitation, he cycles through the feeds so rapidly he's not really inspecting them. Rory knows Manny generates most of the weight alerts by simply fucking with the sensors from a command console. But as Chris cycles past the camera feed from a large dining room, she spots Danny's foot pulling up out of frame. The guard misses it entirely. Once he's absorbed in the alert, Rory heads after Courtney, taking a right into a wide hallway and finding another set of stairs down. "Hey!" Chris shouts after her. She makes it down to the bottom of this flight, feeding her into an incredibly elaborate media room, while she hears his steps thunder on the suspended stairs. Just as she enters the room, he commands, "Stop or I'll shoot." She turns and sees him on the landing above her, pointing a pistol at her. She scoffs. "You're the one who asked what army," she says. "The Queen of Shadows answered." She turns her back on him and walks away. She can hear him bound down the steps in 2 jumps, plus a muffled stomp on the carpet, and then a rough hand clamps onto her right bicep and spins her around. Chris looks angry, but far from in charge. While he clutches her arm, he holsters his sidearm. Then with the same hand, he pulls his walkie-talkie to his lips. "Get me Harwell," he orders. "It's urgent." While he waits for a response, he asks, "How'd you know how long I've worked here?" Rory lets a disdainful smile play at her lips. "The Queen of Shadows sees all, and what I see next for you?" She pauses, pinning him with her gaze, asserting her will over his. "It should make you tremble." Thank you for listening to Metal Rise, Book 3 in the Shadowfast Skyhouse Thrillogy. Continue the story for free on my YouTube channel, where I post episodes every Tuesday until the Thrillogy is complete. Don't want to wait? Grab the entire Thrillogy, Metal Spies, Metal Lies, and Metal Rise, as ebooks and paperbacks on Amazon, Apple Books, Barnes & Noble, and most other online retailers. There's much more to the world of Shadowfast. Go behind the scenes by joining my newsletter list. To sign up, send your email address to shadowfast@colechase.media. Chase your adventure.